Carlo Little may not be a household name like Charlie Watts, but without him, the early beat of British rock might have sounded very different. A thunderous drummer with a flair for showmanship and power, Carlo Little was one of the true founding fathers of the UK rock scene, long before the world had heard of the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, or The Who. His playing was primal, his presence unforgettable, and his influence far more significant than most casual fans realize. Born Carl O'Neill Little on December 17, 1938, in Shepherd's Bush, London, he came of age during a time when skiffle was king and American rock and roll was just beginning to sneak its way into British record shops. Little fell in love with the drums early, inspired by jazz, swing, and the raw rhythm of early rockers like Gene Krupa and Earl Palmer. But it was his time in the British Army that honed his percussive force. Marching drills and military discipline built the foundation for the hard-hitting style he would become known for. After returning to civilian life, Carlo dived headfirst into the exploding London music scene. In the early 1960s, he joined forces with a young and hungry guitarist named Ritchie Blackmore, later of Deep Purple fame, to form the Savages, backing up the screaming, trailblazing rock wildmen Screaming Lord Sutch. Known for their over-the-top horror-themed stage antics and sheer volume, the Savages were less a band and more a rock and roll riot, and Carlo was their beating heart. Carlo Little quickly gained a reputation as one of the loudest drummers in Britain. He played with power, swagger, and a rawness that was rare in an era dominated by tidy jazz technique. This caught the attention of every rising band in London, including a scrappy group of blues-loving young men calling themselves the Rolling Stones. In 1962, before Charlie Watts officially joined the group, Carlo Little was invited to sit in with the Stones for early gigs. Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Brian Jones were impressed by his intensity and professionalism. For a brief moment, it looked like Carlo might become a full-fledged Stone, but the fit wasn't quite right. Carlo was already older, more experienced, and had a wild man image that clashed with the band's blues purist vision. He was offered the spot full-time, but reportedly turned it down, paving the way for Charlie Watts to step in and make history. Still, Little didn't fade. Instead, he became a mentor and a teacher to some of Britain's greatest drummers. He gave lessons to a young Keith Moon, who would later channel Carlo's manic style into The Who's explosive sound. He worked in and out of bands throughout the 60s and 70s, often playing behind big names but rarely stepping into the spotlight himself. Despite his immense talent and impact, Carlo never reached the commercial heights of his peers. But those who know rock history know exactly who he was and how much he contributed. His recordings with Screaming Lord Sutch and the Savages remain a chaotic, beautiful glimpse into the birth of British rock. His influence echoes in every thunderous fill, every crashing cymbal, and every unhinged moment from the golden age of UK rock and roll. Later in life, Carlo enjoyed a resurgence of recognition. In 1998, he released Never Stop Rockin', a solo album that brought together friends and admirers from decades in the business, including Jeff Beck and Ron Wood. It was raw, fun, and full of that trademark energy he never lost. He remained active until his passing in 2005 from lung cancer, leaving behind a legacy too loud to ignore. Carlo Little may not have become a Rolling Stone, but his beat helped set the tempo for an entire generation. He was a bridge between the wild beginnings of British rock and the legends that followed. Loud, proud, and criminally underrated, Carlo Little was the drummer who could have been, and maybe, in spirit, always was.